Greetings and welcome to the Art of Rising. As you already know, we're always looking for great guests to help us to raise our consciousness and raise our financial status and raise anything that we are aware of. So I'm always on the search for great guests, and I seem to have found one right here. His resume is quite diverse and it's super interesting. So if you stick around to the end, we're having the Purple Sage Festival coming up on June 28th. And if you stay to the end, we'll help you out with that ticket. So thank you so much for being on the show, brother. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. I love your
All
energy.
right. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is me. This is me. So why don't you tell us your name and tell us where do you live and what is it that you're doing with yourself these days?
Well, that's a good question. Well, my name is Dan Ramm, and I am a primarily for the last 20 years, I've been a television writer and producer. And now I'm adding accidental author to the resume. Uh, um, my whole career actually has been sort of not I don't want to say an accident because I mean I must have dreamed it or it wouldn't have happened, right?
Mhm.
But it's been very sort of happenstance. I'll tell you, I was born in Kansas City, Missouri. I moved to Los Angeles at a young age. I was just out of high school, 18, 19 years old. And I had been doing construction back there, and I did construction here. And I did construction here up until about 1998 or 9 when I met Joe Montaigne by accident. He called, wanted some work done in his house. We met, struck up a friendship, and about 2 years later, he asked me to come work for him. And I had already, I liked writing in school. I wrote stuff for fun, short stories. And I had actually written a full length screenplay about the life of Sammy Davis Jr. before I even met Joe, just to see if I could do it. I had read his autobiography and I was so blown away by it that I thought, well, I'm going to see if I could write a book, or write a screenplay. So after about 2 or 3 years of working for him, I got the nerve to show him the script, which he got back to me and said, "This is actually pretty good. Is writing something you want to do?" And that was a question no one had ever asked me. I'd never asked myself, and that was a pivotal moment for me because I said yes, I think it is. And from that, he nurtured and encouraged me, criticized me, molded me, whatever you want to say, and you jump 20 years later, and I've written for lots of television shows and been nominated for an Emmy a couple times, and uh, it's just been like, wow, I can't believe it all kind of happened, but
Mhm.
did.
Yeah, I was going over your bio and I was looking at what is it that you do, and someone else might be intimidated by some of those things that you've done, man, but not me.
Yeah.
No, I was like, wow, man, you've accomplished quite a bit. I mean, for someone who would want to do something even close to what you've done, man, and you already know people live their whole lives and don't get not even close to none of that, bro.
Well, I think it boils down to taking a chance. You got to leap. You
Mm,
got to trust. You got to believe in yourself. I mean, that's one thing that Joe told me very early on in knowing him was he said, if you don't believe in yourself, how do you expect anybody else to believe in you?
I love
And
that.
you just got to do it. Like for me, it's writing, and so I write as often as I can,
Mm,
not as often as I'd like to, but as often as I can. And you just keep going, and you don't think about what you're writing. In other words, you don't criticize your own writing. And my wife gave me this thing. It's on my desk somewhere. Oh, it's behind me, and it says, "Write without fear, edit without mercy." Right?
mm,
So you just go. Don't stop.
mm.
Directly go. Just like Monopoly.
Right. Just go. Pass go. Get to the go. Right. Wow. Incredible. I know Joe Mantegna, he's been in some really big stuff. Like he's not a like you would say a character actor. Like people know him and his name. Like
Yeah,
some guys just like, oh yeah, that guy. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Not him. He's like you know him.
No,
He
he's had some wonderful film. The Rat Pack, Godfather 3.
Mm,
Baby's Day Out. I mean, he's done
mm.
over 100 films. But
Yep.
I think people these days sort of know him most for Criminal Minds. He's been on Criminal Minds
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
18 years now.
Uh,
It's
mhm,
just
mhm.
been an
Criminal Minds.
amazing run on that show. I mean, he
Mhm.
just started filming a new season today. Uh,
Oh wow.
so
Yeah.
they're going.
Super successful. I know he was in that one about they were calling people's bluff with the woman. There was a gambling thing or something like
Oh
that. I
yeah,
forget.
House of Games.
Oh, House of Games. Oh man,
First big
classic.
film.
Oh,
Yeah,
love that. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
yeah.
And that's great how you met him. So you were just kind of like writing, you like to write. It was the Sammy Davis Jr. type of thing, and then you met him by
Well,
chance.
what happened was I met him because his wife, actually, Arlene, had called my company. I had about 30 employees working for me at the time, and she had called and wanted an estimate for some work on their house. And so I went there, and when I first walked in the house, and Joe wasn't there, but I looked around. I was like, okay, this guy. I've been doing this long enough. This guy's in show business, whoever it is. I mean, I see some awards. I see this is a beautifully decorated house, big
Mhm.
house, in a nice neighborhood where other celebrities live. And so I thought, this has got to be somebody in show business. And then I saw his picture, and I was like, okay, that's who it is. It's Joe
That,
Mantegna.
wow.
And then, Joe is he's from Chicago. He's a real Midwest guy like I am.
Mm,
And at the time, he owned a few houses that he rented out. And so he would call me from time to time. And we sort of just struck up a friendship. We both kind of liked the same music, and we both golfed, and we both, we just kind of
mm,
connected. I can't
mm,
explain
mm,
how,
mm,
but we
mm,
just
mm,
connected. And then
mm,
I had gotten to this point in my life where I thought, I don't want to do what I'm doing anymore. I'm going to quit. I don't know what I'm
mm,
going to do next,
mm, mm.
but I know I'm not going to do this. So I sold my business, and I had to stay on for 1 year for the transition of the new owners. And like a month before that year was up, he and I were driving back from a golf outing. And he said, so, because he knew what was going on. He said, what are you going to do in a month when your contract is up? And I said, I have no idea. I just know the universe will provide. I just got to take a chance on myself. And he said, well, as it happens, I just got a series for CBS called First Monday, which was about the Supreme Court. He said, if I get an office, I want to start a production company. Why don't you come work for me? So door opens a crack. I'm going to run through it. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right.
Said yes after about a tenth of a second of thinking about it. And that was 2001. And I just never looked back.
Mm,
And our whole relationship has been a handshake. You come work
wow.
for me, I'll treat you right. Great. And that's
Oh,
been it.
I
And he
love that.
has. He's a wonderful, wonderful human being. I wish, I mean, what you see on an interview or whatever, that is kind of him. Like, he's a
Mm,
very easygoing, caring individual, very generous. His whole
mm.
family, they're like my second family. They're all very wonderful.
That's
Um,
beautiful. That's blessed to meet people like that and get along with them. Then you have that sort of agreement, an unspoken type thing, and
yeah, it's just wonderful. And then so, he encouraged my writing, and he was a very helpful, like a mentor, I suppose, in everything I wrote. He would read, and he was very honest and in his criticism. This is great, this is not so great.
mm,
But that all is helpful because I didn't need somebody to just go, oh, it's all good, like, because it wasn't.
mm, mm,
And I paid a lot of attention when because the criminal, I mean, I'm sorry, First Monday didn't last more than one season. He did another show called Joan of Arcadia, which he and I loved, which the premise was he was the police chief of this town, and his daughter, who was a teenager, started seeing God in other people. So it would be a little girl on a bus, or a young teenage boy, or the cafeteria woman. Those forms were God speaking to her, telling her, do this, do that, try that in life. Boy,
mm.
did we want that show to go. It lasted two
Mm.
seasons, but unfortunately, it just didn't keep going.
Okay.
But the messaging in that show was so wonderful. So he did that, and then the next thing he got was Criminal Minds, and that was like, I don't know, 2005 or 7 or whatever it was.
Wow.
It's just been going strong ever since. And I've even written a couple of those Criminal Minds episodes. But
Okay.
during his career, one of the things that I did was I paid a lot of attention to what was going on. I read all the scripts that he was doing on these various shows whenever they were ready. I read scripts that were submitted to him, and I really learned what was good, what was bad, what's character
Mm,
development, how do things work. And so often I would find that a script was really great in the beginning, and like the first act was wonderful, and then the second act was pretty good, and the third act was like okay, and they most of them seemed to fail at the end, and I was like,
mhm,
wow,
mhm,
that's interesting. And
mhm.
so it became my sort of policy that I don't start anything, a script or book or whatever, until I know what the end is,
Mm,
know where I'm going. Now that may
mhm,
change
mhm,
while I'm writing, but at least I know where the goalpost is, and I know what I need to do to get there. So it's been a great learning experience. And then again, taking another chance on myself during COVID. There
mhm,
was no production going on in LA or anywhere really, and I had this idea that I had pitched for a TV series to a network, and they liked it, and they had me develop it a little, and then they ultimately decided they didn't want it.
mhm,
And so I had all this time on my hand with COVID, so I thought, I wonder if I could write a novel.
mm,
So I started working on it, and I think the most important part of that was I didn't tell anybody what I was doing except my wife, because
mm.
not everybody's on your side, even if they
Right. E-
appear to be, or
right.
say they are.
That's right.
They're not
Yep.
always.
Even the loved ones. Oh, loved one, mom, dad, grandma. Yeah, yeah. I know.
And the last thing any artist needs while they're trying to create something from scratch out of their head
Mm,
is criticism from somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about or knows what
mhm,
you're thinking.
mhm,
So I
mhm,
just
mhm,
didn't tell anybody. I just kept writing, and also I thought I'm going to get halfway through and not know what to do. I just
mm,
you know but it just didn't happen. Every day I wrote, every day I got deeper into the story. Every day it became more clear. And then there was a writer strike, so there was no work happening then
mhm,
after
mhm,
COVID, and so I was able to kind of finish it, and I published it last year,
mhm.
towards the end of last year, and
Wow.
it's just had such an incredible response. I mean, the reviews on Amazon are amazing. People are buying it. People love it.
Mhm.
I've been winning all these wonderful awards.
That's right.
So I mean, and now of course. There's a couple of people talking to me like, "Hey, maybe we should make this into a TV show," and I'm like, "What a great idea!"
Right. Right. Of course. Why didn't I think of that? Yeah.
Exactly. I wish I'd have thought of that.
It's incredible. The journey and the art of rising is all about just coming from a place and rising from there, and there's an art to it, right? Some people just think like, hey, it's a lottery ticket or something, but
Yeah.
it's like that thing that you said about taking the chance and going for it. So you said something quite interesting earlier about, you said that things were changing and you didn't want to do that anymore.
Right.
You didn't know what you wanted to do.
Right.
But that recently happened to me actually last year. It was going on for a while. Like, it was like, great. And the money and everything was beautiful, but I just couldn't stomach it anymore. Like something wanted me somewhere else, wanted me doing something else. And I wasn't always sure about that. I know it was in service of people.
Yeah.
And this podcast is part of a very big thing that we're painting.
Yeah.
But please, can you tell me your story about what did that look like and what were some of the feelings that, and your thoughts at the time?
Yeah. Well, I think we all, when you're young and you're just trying to make some money, you gotta pay that rent, you gotta buy that, groceries, you gotta live. And so that's what I did. And then the business got a little bigger, and I started making a little more money, and it got actually pretty big, and I was making decent money, really decent money. I bought a house, everything was going okay. But I was not happy doing that. And so I thought to myself, so is that my life? Am I just going to keep, complacency is a dangerous thing. You know what I mean? And you get complacent because you're like, yeah, but I'm making good money and I got a car payment, I got a house payment, I got insurance, I got all these things, and what am I going to do? Sometimes if you wait for the thing to come along that you want to do next, it never comes along.
That's right.
You almost gotta, you almost gotta knock on the door of the universe and say, okay, I'm ready.
Mhm.
And so I had just thought, that's it. I'm just gonna, I'll take this year of transition. Maybe something will come up. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But I just wasn't happy. That was the most important thing. And then, I also came to the conclusion, is like, is money everything? No, it's not everything. I mean, of course you gotta survive, but would you make a little bit less money if you could be really, really happy? Yeah, sure, why
Right.
not?
Right.
Because
Right.
I know some very wealthy people that are not happy people. You
I
know,
know. I know. I
so
know. We hear it all the time. I mean, what was it? A couple of years ago, who was he? This guy was filthy. And they said that the last thing he had said to somebody in a building was, "Which way is it to the roof?" And that was that. And everybody was like, "Guy's filthy rich, man, and miserable."
yeah, I mean, it's you got to be right with yourself and your soul, uh, no matter
Mm,
what. And if you ain't, then no
mm.
amount of money or no amount of success or fame is going to help you. You know.
So how about during that time? Like, did you feel that you had to get right with yourself and your soul and your relationships, right? Because
I
there's
guess
people
so.
around you, right? Your loved ones, they're looking at you like, "Are you sure this is a good idea?"
Yeah, I mean, I think that I just saying getting right in my mind, getting right with myself was knowing that I had to make a change. Like I knew, like I'd kind of known it for a few years, but I didn't. I pretended like I didn't see it. You know, like no, no, that's ridiculous. That's irresponsible. That's crazy. That's what am I? Why would I do that?
Mhm.
Um, and in my circle of contractor sort of friends, I'd see some guys that were 20, 30 years older than me. They didn't look any happier than I was. So I thought, I don't want to be that. I know that. Um,
Mm.
so I think you have to believe in yourself and not in a reckless way, but in a way that you feel like I don't know. I can't, it's hard to explain. I just had this feeling like there is something better for me out there and
Mhm.
I'm going for it. Even just moving to California, like I didn't know anybody. I knew one guy out here
Mm.
when I moved here,
Mm.
and that was it. And it was a contractor guy I knew, and he had said, "I'll give you a job when you get here."
Mm.
So I took that leap, and I came out here. And when I got here, he said, "I can't hire you now because this big job I thought I was going to get, I'm not getting it now, so I can't hire you." All right. So do I stay and look for a job in a place where I don't know anybody? I don't know. I don't even know how to get from. This is before maps on your phone,
Right.
navigation. This is like you had to look at a book and say, well, okay, where's the. I didn't know where I was. I didn't even know where I wanted to live. I knew nothing.
Mm.
But again, it was one of those like I gotta try. Like I know what'll happen to me if I go back to Kansas City after a week, I'll always regret it. I'll always
Yep.
think like,
Yep.
well, I should have
Mhm.
stayed. I should have tried.
Yeah.
And
I
I,
I know the feeling. I
yeah,
know. I've been there myself, and what comes to mind is like I saw my old man. He was like working till he was 80, and even when he was ill, and he was still on the phone like with them. Oh, hold on, I'm just waiting for the doctors, and oh man, it just even talking about it, it's not easy for me to say it, man, without breaking down. It was so painful
yeah, and
that Dan, I was like, not me, man. I'm not going out like that. What? No.
I know. And I think
No.
all of that has to do with your overall physical health as well. Like
Mm,
I think that your state of mind and your happiness and your excitement for life affects your health
mm.
much more than people realize.
Yeah,
Same
yeah.
thing. My father lived to be 91 and he was just a 9 to 5er and worked till he retired and that was kind of it. And it's like
Mm,
I know he had dreams. Maybe he didn't share them, but I'm sure he did. But he just
Yes.
felt like it wasn't in the cards for him.
Right.
Well, sometimes you got to get a new dealer,
Yeah. Right.
right? But
Love that. I love that. Yeah, it's been quite interesting for myself too, and this is a whole part of it. I get to meet people, and it's sort of like a mini class,
yeah.
right? See, so all that you're giving me and giving these listeners that follow, they're tuning in and they're like, "Wow, man, I learned something from there." So it's super
Well,
powerful.
and one thing I did with I didn't even tell you the book is called Long Branch.
Right,
You
right,
can
right.
get it on Amazon and all those wonderful
Mm-hmm,
places.
mm-hmm.
But when I was writing the book, I knew the story that I wanted to tell. Like the overall, it's a mystery. It's a fiction mystery book.
Mm-hmm.
I knew the story that I wanted to tell, but I was like, who's the main guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And well, what do they say? Write what you know. So I made the main guy most like me, because that way when I'm writing, I thought, now what would he do here? Well, what would I do? Oh, that's what I'll
Right,
do.
right, right, right.
But this character goes on a very bizarre journey himself. So the story is he was a successful television actor, and he had his own TV show for about 10 years on a major network. That show ended, but he was very typecast in the role. He played like it was like a western, and he was like a sheriff. So he got very typecast as that character, and that happens in our business. If you're old enough to remember, like Gilligan's Island, Bob Denver was never anything but Gilligan
Yeah,
forever, right?
right. Forever couldn't.
That
Yeah.
happens with a lot of character. Almost, you're almost too good for the part because you can't think of anything else but that person.
Right.
So this guy's name is Mason Powell.
Mhm.
He's he that show ends, and for the next few years, he can't seem to parlay that success into anything else. Maybe a commercial once in a while, but nothing of any significance. So now he's relied pretty heavily because he's making money, he's making residuals and all that stuff, and he made good money doing the show. He relies on fan shows. So he goes to these autograph signing events.
Mhm.
That's how he's making money now. Well, then COVID hits and
Mhm.
all that stops. And it stops for about year and a half, 2 years. He goes back out when it's over, and the fans just aren't there like they were before. Part of
Mhm.
it is people forgot, people have moved on. Some people, we all remember at that time, people were even afraid to be in a crowd still. Then he finds out through no fault of his own that he is in really bad financial situation.
Mhm.
He ends up moving back to his hometown of Long Branch, Georgia. And it's hard for me to say what happens next because it is a mystery. But let's
Okay.
just say he gets very entangled in a crime that happened 20 years ago, and that he found out he might actually have a little part in it, sort of
Mhm.
unknowingly.
Mhm.
Goes from there. But in the book, you will read this guy goes through everything, and
Mhm.
where he starts and where he finishes is so polar opposite that
Wow.
it's a fun ride, and it's a little bit about my life, like where I
Right.
started and where I am, completely opposite.
Incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible. Everybody loves a good mystery, so that's great. That's great. I'm always fascinated by writers. As I was always when I was coming up, I always looked at books and was so impressed with them. All these pages with all these words. I was like, who wrote this, man? This is a lot of, So every time I meet a writer, I'm like, wow. And then I've done quite a bit of writing myself. Like I'm the type of guy that when I write a letter, it's like 10 or 15 pages, and I journal all the time, and
good.
and then I have a number of books inside, and I have one or two that are just like there with the fire on my ass, like, let's go. What are you waiting,
Yeah,
And I'm like, yeah, but I'm doing this, and I'm doing the other thing, and
yeah.
why don't you tell me about your process? What is your your daily routines in order to get that thing down?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I knew the story. I knew what the ending was going to be. I thought I knew. It changed a little bit by the time I got there, but I just kind of started. I just thought, I obviously had a lot of experience in writing scripts, but I had never written a novel. And so I was a little mystified by the format, but I thought, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to write. Okay. And I started telling the story about this guy and the things that happened to him. And one thing I learned for myself, and I kind of apply this with script writing too, is um, you try to write every day. Sometimes you can't because you're busy. But one thing I do, or I never stop writing. Whatever in my session of writing, I never stop until I know what I'm going to write next.
Mm.
Right. And the reason I do that is because if I know what I'm going to write next, then I'm more excited about getting back to the keyboard and
Mm.
doing it. If I get to a point where I'm like, gee, I don't know what I should do next. I don't know what happens next. I got to think about this. It could be 2 weeks before I get back to the keyboard because now I have a built-in excuse. Well, I don't know what to write next. So I got to wait. I got to wait. I got to wait. Right.
Mm.
But if
That's
I
true.
know, okay, so tomorrow I'm going to write the car crash scene or whatever it is,
Mm,
I
mhm,
have no excuse not to sit
mhm.
down and write.
Mm,
That was a
mm,
biggie for me.
mm,
And then the other one is just not self-edit. It's very easy to be writing and you get a couple paragraphs. You go, oh no, why did I say that? I should go back and fix it. Don't worry about it. I mean, the first draft of this book, once I finished it, I probably went through it 5 more times before
mm,
I let anybody read it. And
mm,
the first person that I let read it was my wife.
mm, mhm.
And I listened to her questions. She was partway through. She said, "Well, what does that mean? Why did he do that?" I'm like, "Okay, that tells me I got to set that up better."
Mm,
Um, once I had a draft I was really happy with,
mm,
I showed it to Joe. I
mhm,
said, I handed him. As really the funny part is, I had printed for him because he likes pages. So
mhm.
I had it printed, but I mistakenly, when I was ordering it online, I mistakenly had him print only on one side. So it was like the phone book. It was so right. I'm like, hey, would you
Yeah,
get this book?
you
Oh
really.
my God, what did you do?
Uh,
Look, it goes a book. It looks like you wrote.
oh, it's too funny.
I said, no, it's only printed on one side. That's why it's like
Mm,
really half as thick. Just think of it like that.
mm,
So he read it, and just like with the Sammy script, he came back to me and said, hey man, this is good. I didn't know what was happening. I was
mm,
surprised by the ending. And that's what everyone has told me so far is they
mm,
never can figure out what's happening. Like not what's happening,
mm.
what's the ending,
Right.
what's the
Mhm.
payoff. Nobody's been able to figure it out yet.
Okay.
In fact, I have his friend Bob is his name, and he called me up after he finished. He says, "I am so mad at you." I
Mm,
said,
mm,
"Why?" And he said, "Well, I just finished your book." And he goes, "And I read a lot of mystery novels, and I always, when I get to the point in the book where I
mm,
think I know what's going on, I write down on a piece of paper, here's what's going on. And
mm,
usually I'm right." He goes,
mm.
"I've thrown away 5 pieces of paper. Still didn't get it."
Oh my God, that's
I'm like,
great.
yes, that's awesome.
That's great. So in the writing process, are you writing for yourself? Are you writing for the audience or
I was writing for myself. I mean, I thought about, I guess I didn't think about what would happen with this book beyond writing it. I just thought, again, I was like, I wonder if I can write it, because I got all this free time and let's just see what happens. And so when it was done and everybody, I don't know, half a dozen friends read it and they all responded so positively. And Joe said, you got to publish this. You got to get this published. This is good. So I hired an editor because I didn't formatting and all that. I didn't want to try to learn it. So I paid this woman, an editor, to go through the book, find all my spelling errors and my punctuation errors and the formatting and make everything like a real book format. And
Mhm.
when she got done with it, she said, I got to ask you a question. Do you have a publisher? And I said, no, I just wrote those books. Well, I have an agent I want you to meet because I really think you could get this published. So I sent it to her friend, this agent, literary agent, who responded very positive. He goes, I really like it. He goes, look, I could sell this. I'm not going to lie to you. I could sell this book, but here's the problem. Problem is you're an unknown fiction author. So if I sell it, it could be 2 years before it actually gets published.
Mhm.
Then they're going to take the majority of your royalties. They're going to take 80%, 90%, and they may or may not put a lot of publicity behind it. It may just be, And I said, well, what do I do? What's your recommendation? He goes, if I were you, because you have this resume as a TV writer and you know a lot of people and you have a lot of connections, I would self-publish and then build an audience, a fan base for the first book. Then when you write the second book, then we'll go to a publisher and say, okay, he's already written the first book, self-published. It did very well. It won all these awards. So let's talk about the second book. I said, oh, okay, great. Because just like in it's funny, it's so much like show business. In with movies, if you have a little movie that you got made, and it could be the best movie in the world, but if Tom Cruise's movie's opening this weekend, yours is not. It's just the way it is. And if it does open, nobody's going to see it because they're all going to see Tom Cruise. So it's like that in the literary world. If James Patterson has a new book coming out, people are going to buy James Patterson's book before they buy yours.
Right.
So
like the showbiz world, same. I know.
Yeah. So I just self-published it, and I'm glad I did because I have all the control in the world about how it gets marketed and how I promote it, and it's been wonderful.
So hold on, let me get a little bit clear on this. So you have this book, and then the guy says, well, you should self-publish that book right there, and then go and write another one.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, he said, if you want to. He goes, I got a day job. It's not like I was trying to make a living selling this book, And I thought, okay, I can afford to do that. I can afford to because I'm not going to sell 1 million copies. That's just not how it works.
Right. It doesn't.
But I've sold more than I expected, a lot more than I expected, and I'm actually halfway through the second book now, writing the second book. And I had to take a break because I was writing for a show that they pay me, so I have to do that.
Right.
Now that's kind of wrapped up, I can sort of get back to it. So I hope to have the second book out by the end of the year.
That's beautiful.
And it's a continuation of the same characters in the first book. It's a series now.
That's wonderful. Perhaps you could tell me what are some of the personal or professional obstacles that you've had to overcome, when it comes to pushing this project? Because it sounds like you have a couple of things going on and you're responsible,
Yeah, I think the challenge is always getting somebody to listen to you, no matter what it is, really, whether it's television or novels or making a movie or, selling dry cleaning. You got to get people to listen to you, and I guess social media has made it easier, but it's also made it more difficult because it's so competitive to get eyeballs, because people have such a quick attention span now. 3-4 seconds, if they're not interested, they're on to the next thing, which is sad. But I think you got to persist. You got to lose the self-doubt. You got to do it for yourself. You just got to enjoy the process and be satisfied with, part of me was thinking to myself, well, if I don't sell any, at least I can say I wrote a novel once, like that's kind of a big deal, I guess. And I just persisted. And in television, I don't know if you know this, but show business is a very calloused and cruel business.
Really?
Yeah. The rejection, you got to love rejection,
Yeah.
You get rejected 99 out of 100 times you get rejected. Man, that one time is like, great.
Yep.
The thing is that I realized a long time ago is that it's not personal. Like, they're not rejecting my submission because they don't like me. They don't even know me. They're rejecting it because everybody's got a problem to solve. Like producers and studio, they all got a problem to solve. They got an hour slot to fill at, Wednesday night on CBS, and we got to find something that fits in there, right? If what you give them in their mind solves that problem, you're going to sell something.
That's it.
That's as good as it gets. You can't force that square peg into the round hole. I've had a few friends of mine who are actors. They say, hey man, can you get me a job on Criminal Minds? Well, no, I could probably get you an audition if a part comes up that you're right for.
Right.
It's on you, man. You got to go in there and you got to read those lines and you got to nail it. And I've been on the other side of that. Joe's directed, I don't know, 15 episodes of Criminal Minds over the last 20 years. And oftentimes, and two of them were mine. And so I was part of that other side of the process where I sat in the casting room and I watched people come in and read for the part, and Joe would pick the person that he's like, that's the person. And I could see it and I could even see it. Like when the person came in, you knew it. That's the guy. Like
Right.
you knew the character, you'd read the script, so you knew what the part was. Like it was, let's say the part was like for a gas station attendant, and a guy comes in and he starts talking and you just go, well, that's him. That's the guy I imagined.
Right.
Sometimes that's all it takes. I remember vividly this woman came in to audition, and she was perfect for the role. And they usually audition 3 people live, right, for each part. So she left, and Joe turned to the casting director and he said, "That's the girl. That's who I want." And the casting director goes, "Okay, well, she's not in SAG. She's not in the Screen Actors Guild." And he goes,
Right.
"She is now." Because I'm picking her. So,
Wow. Yeah. Right.
when you're
Right.
right, it's right,
Right. Yeah. It's not personal.
No.
It's like it's the one. Trust me, and that's it. Let's keep
Yeah.
moving. Yeah.
Yep.
What are some of the misconceptions that people you think that they would feel about writing and that whole world of creating and stuff like that?
I, misconceptions.
Hmm.
I think that people. I think people think that, oh, well, you're in the business. You could help me get in the business. Like
Mm,
that is probably if I had $1 for every time an actor tells Joe, like, hey, I want to be an actor, what advice do you have? And he's
mm,
like, if there was a magic phone number, I'd give it to you, but there isn't.
right.
You just got to
Mm,
love what you do and do it, and not
right.
worry about whether you're ever going to make a dime at it, because most
Right.
people aren't.
Right. Most success books, they're usually saying about the same thing, a handful of things, and that's one of them. Like,
Yeah,
just do it because you love to do it, man. You're chasing the money, and yeah, money's a part of the byproduct of what you do and those type of things. But
yeah.
just go all in.
I mean, Joe told me, actually, I heard him say it in an interview, and then I talked to him about it later. Um, he said that, so he started acting in high school. So it was like 16, right?
Mhm.
And he told me he doesn't love acting any more now than he did when he was 16.
Mm,
He makes more money,
right.
but
Right.
the love for going in and putting on a
Mhm,
costume and pretending
mhm,
to be somebody else for a day,
mhm.
same excitement then as it is now.
Right. Right. That's beautiful.
And that didn't change for him.
So you have this award sitting in the back of you over there, bro. Where'd you buy that? Or
You can
that's
find
probably
anything on
what
eBay.
your family says, right? Like, where'd you buy it?
Well, Joe and I produced a documentary for the Palm Springs Air Museum a few
Mm.
years ago. It was their 25th anniversary, and we were lucky enough the show was lucky enough to win an award for that, an Emmy award.
What was the name of the documentary?
It's called Palm Springs Air Museum 25th Anniversary.
Mm, mm,
And what we did was Joe was the on-camera host. We talked about if you've never been, this is just such an amazing museum out in the Coachella Valley area, Palm Springs, California.
right.
Most of the aircraft there fly. They're almost all are military, starting with World War II. Maybe there's a few earlier, like some biplanes, all the
Mm,
way up to even present day. I mean, they have a stealth fighter or stealth bomber there now too.
mm, mm,
Really incredible collection. One of the top air museums in the country, if not the world. So they were celebrating their 25th anniversary. So Philip Large, our director and other producer, he had written this beautiful script about
mhm,
why this museum is important, et cetera. And he said, we got to think of something that would be kind of fun that would happen in the program. So I came up with this idea that we would call a bunch of Joe and I's friends, who are sort of famous people, I guess you'd say,
mm,
and have everybody tell a quick story about about flying. something that either a good story, bad story, scary story, whatever. And so we had, Dennis Leary and Ray Romano and some of the other cast of Criminal Minds. I had, gosh, I can't remember now. We had so many people.
Mm.
Guy Fieri, like the chef. We just
Mm.
everybody had a story to tell. And it was Bryan Cranston had a very funny story about being a
Mm.
minister and marrying two people on a little tiny like Cessna and it's bouncing around and they're
Okay.
yelling, the engine's loud.
Okay.
And it was very fun and very entertaining. And,
Mm.
they gave us an Emmy for it. So we're very, very proud of that.
Amazing, amazing. I mean, people work their whole life, and but like you said, it's just that persistence. Things. How about some of the obstacles that you had to overcome? In your personal life. I'm sure you're a family man, and we're talking about time here,
Yeah.
right? Building this, and you're writing, and you're holding down the day thing, and and people are like, "Oh, aren't you gonna go pick up that sex?"
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just like anybody. I mean, I was married. I got divorced and then I got remarried about 9 years ago. So that's always a set of challenges. Luckily, we're all on good terms, which makes life easy. I
Yes.
don't have kids of my own. My first wife had children, so I have some stepkids that I
Okay.
adore, and they have children, so I have technically grandchildren that I adore.
Mm.
Um, I think personal challenges is just those frustrations, those like you just thought this was it, this is the perfect. I remember I wrote a comedy script once, and at the time it was ICM. They've been bought out by CAA, but I had an agent at ICM, and he said, "This is a home run. This is a knock it out of the park pilot. I'm going to set you up on pitch meetings." Great. So Joe and I went around, pitched this thing everywhere. Nobody bought it, and I was like, and I said to the agent, "Well, what happened? I thought this was home run." He goes, "I don't know.
Right,
You just
right.
can't,
It was a foul. It was a foul ball. We thought it was a home
know."
run. It fell.
So,
The wind just.
but that happens all the time. You pitch stuff like that. Last year, we had a response from one of the streamers. I don't even remember which one it was about a.
Mm.
It was sort of a unscripted-ish kind of thing, and the response was, "We're giving you a very positive no."
Mm.
Positive. Let me write that one down.
Right.
Positive no.
Oh
Sounds
my
like an
goodness.
oxymoron to me, but okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I
Wow.
respond to that. I'd use like a
Well,
positive no. I don't even know what that means.
right. So like from the outside, I could see there's like lots of success here, man. And my hats off to you, and that's beautiful. But how do you measure success? No.
Well, it's funny. I don't measure it with money because I don't make a lot of money. I do okay. I mean, probably better than some, obviously,
Mm.
but I get such a joy. So I wrote this show called Hollywood Weapons Fact or Fiction.
Mm.
Okay. We did 50 episodes, I think. I wrote them all. And basically, it was kind of like a Mythbusters type show. So what we would do is we would take a scene from a TV show or a movie where a weapon was used. Could be a sword, a gun, a stick of dynamite, something. And in the movie, you're watching it and you're thinking, would that really work in the real world like that if you use that weapon in that way? And an example I always give is if you've seen Jaws,
Mm.
Roy Scheider shoots the scuba tank in the shark's mouth and it explodes. You think,
Mhm.
would that really explode if you shot it?
Yeah.
So the show was testing all those kinds of things from movies and TV shows.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. That sounds good.
And
People love that.
yeah, and so we did the first episode was kind of very straightforward, and I had a guy named Terry Shepard who was a retired Green Beret,
Mm.
career Green Beret, and he was our host, and a guy named Larry Zanoff, who is probably the premier armorer for film and television in Los Angeles.
Mm.
And they were kind of like, so Terry would come to Larry and say, "I have an idea. I want to test this." And Larry would say, "Well, I'll get the guns and we'll go test it." And
Mhm.
so the first episode was very straightforward like that. But what I noticed was in between takes, these guys were like jabbing at each other, like, you, and they were joking around. And I was like, that's the show. That's funny.
Mm.
So episode two, which was we actually did test Jaws. I started, and then I realized like what we should do is the opening of the show should be like a spoof on the movie. So
Mm,
I had Terry dressed like Roy Scheider at a beach, and he's like looking in the water, and he hears somebody screaming. You know, it's like that whole play on.
nice.
So every episode had some
Sounds good
funny,
to me.
yeah, and it was a lot of fun, and we tested all kinds of things. Like I said, we did like 50 episodes. So
Wow.
the long answer to your question is, how do
Mhm.
I measure success? When I'm sitting there watching, when I would be watching one of these shows on TV, and people I know or my friends or family would be around, and we would all be watching a new episode together.
Mm,
When they would all laugh or when they would
mm,
all gasp at a test,
mm,
oh, it worked. Yeah,
mm,
that was the
mm.
reward. Like, okay,
Right,
what I imagined
right,
communicated. It worked. They got it.
right, right. Self-rewarding, gratification. That's a purpose to live for. Money's good. Hey, I like money. I've been without it and I'm with it. I'd rather be with it,
Yeah, yeah,
but that self gratification when you bring some joy to other humans, it's incredible.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
And just
Um,
knowing that what I imagined, what I thought came true. Just like with the
mm,
book. When I wrote the book, I was thinking like, "Gee, I wonder how people will, if people will get it, if people will
mm,
read the whole thing, and how will they respond?"
mm,
Same thing, man. When I get phone calls or I read the Amazon reviews and people are saying like, "This is the greatest book I read, in a long time, and it's so fun, and it's this, and it kept me guessing," and
mm.
wow, man, that's great. I mean, what else could
Right.
I ask for?
Right, right. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, what about some of the what comes to mind is like when people are writing these days, AI has been, sneaking in the back door over here.
Yeah.
So what is your take on that? And what do you see as the future for writing? This is a big thing, bro.
I think it's dangerous. I think technology can be very dangerous. I mean, I use social media, but I also think social media is one of the problems with society because it has taken away the personal aspect. I mean, my wife and I, we go out to dinner, we see couples at dinner with their phones like this instead
Yeah,
of talking to
yeah,
each other. Like, well,
yeah. I see someone on a first date.
yeah,
Like that could be the mother of your child, bro. Like you might want to talk.
yeah. Or whole families where the little kids are on iPads and the parents are on their phones, but
Yeah.
they're all
Yep.
eating. Like, why'd you even
Yeah.
go out? I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. I know. I know.
It's
Go
just
ahead. I'm sorry.
no, no, no. It's frustrating. It's
Yep.
frustrating. But
Hmm.
yeah, I lost track of the question now.
Yeah. It was the AI and how do
Oh,
you see the
AI.
future in writing? And creating
So
these things that you do.
yeah, so I mean, I hear. I've never seen it or tried it, but I hear like, oh man, you can put in a whole thing and it'll write the whole book for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to read that. I don't want to read some computer generated. So
Right.
in my mind, I'm sure AI can do a lot of things, and maybe some things will help us with medicine or whatever. But there's no personality, there's no life experience. The AI is just referencing other things off the internet and creating a combination of words and phrases from different sources to create this new sentence or paragraph.
Mhm.
There's no emotion in that. There's no, and I almost feel like I bet I could tell, like, oh, this is not written by a human being because you
Mhm.
emotional content. There's words, but I don't feel it.
I
It's like
know. It's
I've heard
crazy.
I've heard some AI music.
Mhm.
I don't like I hear it. I don't. There's no emotion from the singer.
Mm.
When I listen to Frank Sinatra or Paul McCartney, I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
saying
Right. Or classical music like Bach or these
exactly.
masters. Like, come on, bro. Like,
Yeah, you can't
yeah.
tell me that when you sit and listen to Bolero, you don't feel it. The way
Right.
it builds, the way you're not going to get
Mhm.
that with AI. So I mean, I think it's a dangerous thing. I saw a car commercial where there's like a little boy in the car and the mom is out in front of the car and she's like turn on the headlights, and so he's doing something with the headlights, some way you can adjust the lights to do
Mhm.
different things, and he goes, how's that? No, try this. So he's doing this, and I'm looking at this commercial, I'm like, there's something weird about this commercial. And after about
Mm.
the third time I saw the commercial, I realized the kid is AI. It's not a real
Mm.
kid.
See,
Cartoon kid,
you see, yeah.
because they don't want to pay a kid.
Yep, that's great. Yeah, they want to keep pushing it that way. But I've seen some of them like I did interview this other gentleman that is deep in the field, and he said that, what we use as AI, it's not artificial intelligence. It's not an artificial. It's getting something from somewhere else and is building on it and
Yeah,
giving you what is it that you're asking. It's not intelligent, not even artificial intelligence. It's not like that. People think it is, but
no,
it seems that it's one of those things that they give society, like, let's give the kids this will keep them quiet for a while. Yeah, it's crazy, let them play with this toy, but they have the real stuff.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe now they're gonna have to invent some program to, detect AI writing. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, right, that's true. And you see some of the ads, like I see them on the social and stuff, like they look beautiful. But they're looking a lot the same. You could
Yeah,
tell that little thing that you said. Like you go, wait,
yeah, yeah,
it looks nice.
yeah.
Let's give it that, but that's not Bob.
No.
That's yeah, something
No, and
else.
all
Yeah,
that does, like any sort of automation, is just taking jobs away from people, taking jobs away
yeah,
from actors or from writers, from musicians,
mm,
from editors, from everybody. It's
yeah.
not.
That human touch, that creativity.
Yeah, I mean, art. Everything to me, everything is art. When you work on a TV show, the actors get a lot of accolades, and they should, right? Directors get some, writers get less, but then there's the rest of the crew. And in my world,
Mm,
every one of those people, they're artists in what they do. The
mhm,
guy who decorates a set takes an empty room and turns it into something that you believe is a hotel room or a
right,
living room or
right,
whatever, right?
right.
Down to the littlest detail,
Yep.
or the person that makes that picks out the wardrobe and the costumes, that always dresses the characters just like you imagine they would be dressed.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
I
mhm.
mean, it takes a team of artists to make art. It's not just a one person thing, and AI can't do that.
Right, right. Yeah, that's what they say. Like it doesn't have that cognitive, emotional decision making that humans do. And then
Yeah,
in the creativity process, like man, something like The Godfather or like
no,
Glengarry Glen Ross or like
right?
some of these. Oh, come on, bro. Like really? No, no. And then the crazy thing is that, a lot of these writers like yourself, they were on those old school typewriters, and then they had to like you
Well, you
can't now.
mentioned David Mamet. You mentioned House of Games, which is written by David Mamet. Glengarry
Yeah.
Glen Ross, written by David Mamet.
Mhm.
I know Dave a little bit. Joe obviously knows him very well.
Mhm.
And to my knowledge, he still uses a typewriter when he writes.
Wow.
Yeah. He's not a
Incredible.
technology guy. He doesn't, although he
Right,
just got on Instagram, and
right.
one of his first posts was, "This is the greatest thing that ever happened to everyone."
Right. Wow. Incredible.
But yeah, I mean, he still
Incredible.
types on a typewriter.
Yeah, I always have this vision of what's his name? The guy who created James Bond.
Ian Fleming, yeah.
Ian Fleming, yeah, with his, cigarette, at the typewriter, man. It's like banging it out every day. It's like come on, you can't.
All right, I'll do you one better. Sylvester Stallone, he writes by hand. He writes scripts with a pen and pad, and then he gives it to somebody who types it for him. He doesn't even want to mess
Mm,
with the typewriter.
wow.
Yeah. He said,
Incredible. What?
he goes, I could never type this fast. I understand that.
Mm, right, right. He wants to get something done,
Yeah.
right?
He's a busy guy.
Not learn a new skill and then yeah, come on. How about for some of the closing part is some advice, that you would give someone, some inspiring creator that would want to make an impact and those type of things.
I think you got to believe in yourself, whatever it is you're doing, and
Mhm.
just and persist. Always take the opportunity. If you see an opportunity, you got to take it, and not think like, well, I'll do it next time. There may
Mhm.
not be a next time. If
Mm,
I'd have told Joe I don't know. I don't know. I'd be here right now.
Mm,
Um, and when it comes to writing, I think my advice to people with writing is always just read a lot and write a lot. Just write short
mm,
stories, write long stories, try to write a book, try to write whatever.
mm,
Maybe a novel is a little daunting for a first timer, but you
mm,
can write a short story. And if you don't think you can write a short story, if you can tell a story and
mm.
get keep people's interest, then you can write a story.
Right,
You
right,
know, you could
right.
just you can just write it instead of telling it, and you'll come up with a story.
Incredible.
And write
That's
what
a
you know. That's like I said, man, write what you know, right?
great.
And I think that's a good sort of homework assignment, right? So
Mm,
pick a subject that you know a lot about. Maybe your grandparents owned a deli. Maybe you
mm,
have a friend that
mm,
is very funny. Like just something you know about and write about that thing.
mm, mm.
In tell that story. Mom, my
Right,
grandparents this or whatever.
right.
Because
Mm,
you're not making anything up. It's all from your own knowledge, and so that makes it a little
mm.
easier to get started too.
Right, right. Yeah, it makes me think of like those deep descriptions of things that you could find in a book. You couldn't find it even in a movie. Like I've read books that were based on movies, and the movie was like 3 hours long, but it was nothing like the book. The book was probably like a week long movie or so.
Well,
Yeah.
it's true. So Joe was kind enough to record Long Branch on Audible for me,
Mm,
and
that's
that's a whole
beautiful.
art unto itself, man.
I love audios.
It took, I mean, I think it took him 2.5 days in a recording session,
Mm,
7 hours each day to
mm.
record it. So I think the finished product is around 8 or 9 hours, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, and that's a skill, boy, sitting and
Right.
reading out loud for that long. And
Yeah,
the way
and
he reads it too, he actually gives the characters their own distinct voices. He doesn't just
mm,
read it; he
right.
mimics the voice.
Wow. And
So
then
that,
to be steady with that, like,
yeah,
the next day or like 5 hours later, you gotta stay with the same energy.
yep,
Because
yep.
I've heard you've heard some audiobooks. I'm like, this guy took a nap, he just got up, it's like,
What happened to his accent?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, I know.
That's
But
beautiful.
yeah, and so it's been an awesome little journey and I'm excited to see what happens next, where it takes me. I mean, I was nominated for Author of the Year. We'll find out in October about that. I don't even care if I win, just being nominated. I'm like, heck yeah.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
and yeah, I mean, it's been awesome, and I
That's
thank the
beautiful.
universe for listening to me when I said I wish I could do this.
Right. I've heard you say this more than one time, man, and I just get this feeling of like that you have a sort of a connection with the spiritual aspect of that everything that's going on around you.
I do. I feel like I'm not particularly religious. I am very spiritual. I believe there is a higher power, and I believe that we're all connected in some way. And
Mm,
um, I think that there was a book a long time ago written called The Power of Positive Thinking, and I
mhm,
think
mhm,
that's true. I think what you put out, you get usually, and
mm.
just keep putting out positive things and positive energy. um, I've made it my mission to be kind to anybody I meet. Can I help you? I'm very tall. I'm 6'2". So just to the grocery store yesterday, this little tiny woman's trying to get something off. I said, let me help you,
Mhm,
'cause why not?
mhm, mhm.
Why not? Right.
Right,
Uh,
right,
so and you wouldn't know it by looking at me, but I'm half Mexican. So
right.
I've had cleansing. My mother-in-law has lit the sage and got
Yeah,
cleansed.
right.
It's like, I love it, man. Let's do it. Come on now.
Let's do it. I know. I'm with it too. Trust me. I'm with it. I'm with it. Whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
why not? I don't see the problem.
not gonna
The
hurt
other
me.
s- yeah, the other stuff is dogma and these type of rules and stuff and
No.
that can stop you
And,
from getting the thing that you really is meant for you.
yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
So, what I wanted to say was, where can people find you?
I have a website called Dan Ramm Books. It's DANRAMM Books,
Mm.
BOOKS.com.
Okay.
That's my website that will link you to places where you can buy the book and read my story a little bit. Um, and then, of course, it's on Amazon. The book is on Amazon. The book is on Barnes and Noble and Apple and
Okay.
Audible and just about anywhere you can buy a book online. You'll find Long Branch.
Okay, that's great. That's great. We're going to leave all those in the show notes. And I think now I remember the question I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
When you do write, how much do you write? Is that a good question?
You mean at
You
one
know,
time?
that's right. Like a page or 5 pages,
You
or
know, it
like it depends on your
depends.
time, or.
I don't time it. I sort of go till I get physically
Mm,
tired. I mean,
okay.
sometimes I try to get up and walk around at least once an hour because if I
Right.
don't, I mean, I could sit in a chair for 4 hours and just be like a zombie.
Mm,
I'm so get
right.
so engrossed.
Mm,
So when I start to feel tired or I start to feel like, man, I'm fatigued or I got stuff to do today,
right. 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 Other than
it,
this.
um, then that's when I start looking for, okay, what am I going to write next? Okay, I'm going
Mm,
to write the scene where this happens. Okay, I won't forget that. I'm going to stop
mm,
now, and as soon as possible, I'm going to get back to it. I'm going to write that scene.
mm,
I'll tell you that I know people have heard about the muse
mm-hmm,
speaks to
mm-hmm,
you. I can
mm-hmm.
tell you that for me, that is 100% true. There are times that it is a stream of consciousness. It's almost as if someone is
Mm.
telling me the story, and I'm just trying to keep up on the typewriter,
Right.
on
You
the keyboard.
see? You see?
And it's like a high. I mean, I love it when that happens
Right.
because I'm just like, oh, that was good. That was great.
Right, right, right.
It just flows. And
Yeah.
so days like that,
Mm.
I'll write 20 pages in a day.
Mm. You see, there goes that spiritual aspect I hear coming from you again, man. It's you tapped in. You tapped in. I know
Oh,
you. Yeah, yeah. It's beautiful to remain in that flow sequence. Yeah, there's some guys the one that I read with Stealing Fire by Stephen Kotler. Talks about that, about Prometheus and the fire that he stole from the gods and gave it to humans is a fire that just burns inside of us, and it happens usually when you're a professional athlete or you're a writer or you're a painter, or like you just get lost in time, you just start flowing, and it's like the fire just like
yeah.
stoking it and just keeps burning, like, yeah, it's beautiful, man.
Yeah, and I think talent and skill, I think all those things are important, and obviously that's makes the difference. That's why there's a Michael Jordan, or
Mm,
Kobe Bryant, that's why those guys they were gifted in that way,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Mhm,
But
mhm.
we're all gifted in some way,
Exactly.
Maybe we're not
Exactly.
Kobe, but we could be
Right.
somebody else.
Yeah, and there's plenty of Kobe's around and
Yeah.
Michael Jordan. Yeah, plenty of them in their own right. We just don't hear about them.
Yeah.
Uh, what's his name? Oh, Seth Godin. He's the big marketing guy, and he says, you think you would have a product that would sell to hundreds of thousands of people. He's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. If
Yeah.
you had 10,000 or 20,000 people who liked your product and whatever it is that you're producing, like, man, you live a great life, man. No, not you won't get that stardom, like people, everybody know, but yeah, people will love you.
I
Mhm.
know somebody asked me, what's your dream? What is your dream? I said, my dream is that I could move to some beautiful place, like, and just live my life and just write books and sell just enough books to feed
Mm,
myself and take care of, like that's all I
that's
need.
it.
Just
That's
just
it.
do that. I'm good with that.
Right.
You know, I don't
Right.
need I don't need an Oprah Winfrey mansion. I don't need that stuff.
Right. Right. Yeah.
More
Yeah.
trouble.
Yeah, right. And that's a great question because I was thinking about that too, man. Thank you for answering that. I
Yeah.
appreciate your time, appreciate your personal insight, your thoughts and all that, man. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. So we're having this festival that we have every year, like twice a year. It's usually like a gathering, but now we're stepping into deeper waters. It's a big event, and it has to do with live music and energetic food, and there'll be different vendors there too. It's a family event. It's a dry event too. So it's all about, kind of like the health and wellness, and that, let's go, like up it. Let's, pay attention.
Great.
And it's taking place on June 28th, and it's in New Paltz, New York. I didn't know New Paltz. I have to go there and see. It's kind of by Woodstock. Most people know
Okay.
Woodstock,
Okay.
right? New Paltz. It's beautiful. It's on 250 acres of land. These people that they're the stewards of the land. They're open to these type of festivals, and so it's
Beautiful.
a big thing for us, man. It's yeah, yeah. It's
Great.
that thing, that flow. So
Oh,
anybody who's stood to the end of the broadcast, we just like to say that we will give you 20% off of that ticket, and the code word is Long Branch. That's it.
I like it.
Just mention Long. You like? I knew you would.
Actually, there is a Long Branch, New York, or New Jersey. There
Yeah,
is a town
yeah,
there.
yeah.
My town is a fictitious town in Georgia, but
Mm.
yeah, there is somebody told me that, like, oh, is this take place in New Jersey? I was like, no.
Right. Yep. Long Branch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to, sinking my teeth into that book and gifting it to people. So, man, thank you so much for your time and
Thank you.
everything.
It's been a lot of
Appreciate
fun. I
you.
really enjoyed myself.
Appreciate it. Okay. See you soon, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
Peace.